Welcome to APCUG's Saturday Safari, where we follow the path through the jungle and we find more discoveries and treasures in technology. Today, this is February. We're getting towards tax time. We are so pleased to have with us Tom Burt, who's the Vice President of the Sun City Summerland Computer Club, with us today to share his expertise. Tom wrote his first computer program in Fortran back in 1964 at Wayne State University, which began a career that spanned 61 years. He's worked as a software engineer, IT manager in the automotive, construction, aerospace, banking, and software tools industry. Tom got his first Apple II computer in 1982, and by 1984 was writing software for IBM PCs. Since retiring from Silicon Valley to Sun City Summerland in Las Vegas 31 years ago, Tom's been active as a part-time software developer and webmaster working for Community's IT department. Tom is also very active as vice president for the Sun City Summerland Computer Club. His activities include giving seminars on technical topics, editing the monthly newsletter, maintaining the club's website, and developing custom software for managing the club's activities. Today, he's here with us to talk about tax and filing taxes, which is very appropriate. So I'm going to turn things over to Tom and have him share so you know what's going on.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And thanks, Judy. She's going to be managing all the questions. Let me share my screen. And I'm going to work today off of a slide deck, and then we're going to do some demos with H&R Block. That is the tax software I've been using for quite a while. We will take a look at TurboTax, just so we cover the bases pretty much for both families of users, we might say. So let's just dive on in. Here's the agenda. I'm going to do a little introduction. We'll spend a brief time on TurboTax and on H&R Block, just the versions and features. And then the way I'm going to do the demo is I have a fictitious couple. I live in Sun City, Summerland, by the way, which is in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so I've done a retired Sun City couple here that's sort of a good model for all of the things that come up. We'll probably not do, because of time limitations, I'll spend a little time in the demo so you can see what one of these programs looks like. And then I've got a little material toward the back, which isn't as urgent. One handy thing, though, I put the 2025 tax rates in the handout for you, because sooner or later, if you're into doing your taxes, 25 estimated taxes are coming up already. They'll be due April 15th. So let's just dig in. Few things. It is a seminar about tax software. It's not a seminar implicitly, let's say, about income taxes. Do not rely on me for tax advice. It's worth exactly what you paid for it. Don't rely on me to correctly interpret the tax laws for your situation. So given those two, I'll do the best I can in the course of this. I've been doing my own taxes, just about as long as I've been in the computer business, say 40 years anyway. And so I'm pretty good at it. But the tax laws themselves, the last I heard, run on to several 100,000 pages now. And there's no way any human can possibly know all of that. So That's one of the beauties of these programs, as I'll get to in a moment. All right, so as I said, we'll look at H&R Block and TurboTax feature set, and then dig into H&R Block a little bit more. Real quick, if this is a new thing, I'm going to guess most of you do this already. Maybe some are just considering, is this a good way to go? Benefits of these things. One, they both run, this is TurboTax and H&R Block, have an interview mode where literally you go screen by screen, they ask you some questions, you fill in the information, hit next, and you just work your way progressively through that interview. When you get to the end, basically you're ready to file. If you're more old-fashioned and you like filling in all those little forms and boxes and things, and taking this from box 23A on page 3, putting it in box 100 on page 5, they do have a forms mode, both these programs, and you can go back and forth. Every data entry item in the form is linked to a place in the interview. One nice thing about these programs is if you've used either, actually, it's interesting that H&R Block will import from TurboTax and vice versa. You can import your prior year's tax return data, and that gives you a big leg up on getting a lot of information in. And when you go through the interview after the import, you just adjust anything that's changed since the previous year. You can go get a lot of the financial data automatically. They will hook up to your brokerage accounts and so on and download that stuff. Or you can import, if you use Quicken, let's say, you can import a lot of data from Quicken. One real nice thing, if you've ever done the old-fashioned paper forms, whenever you make a change within these tax programs, everything else is immediately recalculated. And you have a lot of things that are dependent, let's say, on your modified adjusted gross income. And if something happens and that changes, and the common case is your broker, sometime about 3 weeks after you've done most of the data entry, sends you a corrected 1099 and reclassifies some of the income, may affect your modified adjusted gross income. Well, if that number changes, that ripples through many other calculations. So it's very nice that every time you do something, these programs recalculate for you. The other great thing is these programs know and follow the latest tax rules. That's what's so nice about the interview, is they literally make sure you get everything in properly and that you cover all the bases. There's a lot of error checking. As you get toward the end, when you're ready to file, they will run an error check and then step you through anything you need to fix. It goes through a review of everything to tell you how likely it is you're going to be audited. That can be reassuring. What you want is to be way down in the low end of that. And all these programs, or both these programs, if you like, facilitate the electronic filing. That's built right into the program. When you're ready to file, you just do a couple of clicks. They send your tax return through an encrypted connection, and it goes directly to the IRS. You get a confirmation back, and basically then you know you're good. When you mail your return in, you never know if the post office is really going to get it there. you know, the fact that you get that little green receipt back doesn't mean much because the people at the IRS might lose it too. But the last thing maybe that's important, well, too, if you're in a state that does state income taxes, all the data you put in for the federal return generally can carry over. The state return, depending on which package you buy, may be built in. If not, you can buy that separately. But it'll import all of your federal data into the state income tax return, walk you through an interview there, and then handle the electronic filing for the state. And maybe the last thing, when you do it this way, your tax filing is completely private. You're not involving a third party who then has privy to all your information. And the tax files, the returns are basically kept on your PC. So we'll see, there is an option to do this in the cloud also, but I'd recommend generally it's just as good to do it on your own PC if you have one. So, all right, let me real quick talk about TurboTax versions. They have free, which is online, and then they go progressively more complicated: basic, deluxe, premier, and home and business. Typically, if you own stocks and bonds, maybe have a rental property, you're going to need the premier version. If you're doing any kind of a small business, you might have an eBay storefront. Maybe you're consulting like I do at times. So you've got a Schedule C business income schedule. You're going to need TurboTax Home and Business. Now let's go up to their website just for a quick moment. And hopefully I can remember how to get in here. Do it yourself, do your own personal taxes with desktop software. There we go. So they have a sort of a couple of quick things. Are you single or married? I own a home, I own stock, I own a... So they tell you then which version you need. And you can see they would come back with home and business being the one that you need. They've got a $10 off sale going right now. But the basic one over here, hardly anybody that's, if you're getting Social Security or just pure wage income, maybe you're okay. Well, anyway, that's TurboTax. And let me get back to my slides. Here is key features. Again, they do a step-by-step interview, and the flow is your personal information, your income, your expenses, and then any credits and other things. They have the forms mode, have a nice tax summary. They have a deduction finder, they call it, which will help you figure out itemized deductions that you might not have thought of. I didn't really mention all of these have the ability to print the return. You're going to want at least a printed copy of the filing return, because if you need to apply for credit anywhere, quite often they want to see that. They do the electronic filing in the state returns. All right, let me hop over now. H&R Block. Once again, they've got a very simple basic version that's free. Basic. Deluxe, interestingly, does stocks, rentals, Schedule C business, just about everything you need. And then they have a premium and a premium in business for corporate returns. If you're a LLC, a limited liability company, or maybe a Chapter S, Subchapter S corporation, you might need that version. Premium I didn't see much there that's different from what you get in deluxe. But if you've got a complicated business, you might want premium. So let's go up to their website for a minute again. And tax software. And they have sort of the same thing going where you've got these are the list prices. You might want to shop around on Amazon or Costco or someplace. You may find these are a little cheaper. They do have a version that's federal only, which is less expensive than the one they're showing her here, and you can get that. But again, it's very much the same kind of thing. You can get these once you've bought one or the other. They tend to notify you each year, typically late November, that the new version's available. And you can buy it then, typically for a discount. I paid about $40 for the copy I'm going to be showing you today. All right, so basic features of H&R Block, very much the same. Put in your personal information, your income, do your expenses for deductions. They have a forms mode, a tax summary, program and tax help, the same stuff. And again, you can do a state return if you need to. So let's look at my fictitious couple. I'm not going to read all this to you, but it's two retired folks. They get income from wages and self-employment, Social Security, some interest, they own a treasury bond, and they get dividends from their accounts at Schwab, stock sales. They do have to take required minimum distributions. They're both over 72. And they both had IRAs that they're converting parts of to Roth IRAs. And then new this year, I threw in a rental property just so we could do a Schedule E. And there's some of that. Well, that's one further down. These are their deductions. And again, there's a lot of numbers there that we don't need to worry about. Here's the typical stuff that you need if you've got a rental income. What's your basis for depreciation? What was the rent, mortgage, real estate taxes? Being relatively mature seniors, they pay a management company to answer the phone at 10 at night when the toilet's stopped up, all that kind of stuff. And the depreciation is there. All right, so all those numbers would go in. So let's go take a look at H&R Block. And as John was saying at the beginning, if you're having a little trouble seeing this, I zoomed up my font sizes in Windows 11, but it doesn't seem to help with the font sizes inside H&R Block. So you get this screen. I've got a couple returns going, my own, and I've got a relatively complete one for my fictitious couple. We're going to look at that for most of what I'm going to do. But just so you get an idea of how this works, I'm going to say start a new return. Do you want to import from last year? Yes. All right, we'll hit next. And it's found the return from last year. There's a standard place in the documents folder where these are kept. So that's the one I want. We're ready to go. And I'm just going to say import. All right, great news. We've successfully imported. The new name for this year would be, and I'm going to make it J&M. Oops. No related. All right. Easy does it. I just like to here, J&M. You can name it whatever you want. And because I've got a live one of these going, I'm going to say demo so we don't mess up the good one. You notice it's going to get saved in your profile folder. See users Tom, in my case, documents, H&R Block. So keep track of that so you know where to go find it later if you want to back it up or something. We're not going to do imports from financial software because the fictitious couple doesn't have any. And they're married filing jointly. So here's what we know, and you could go in here and fix anything that might have changed. Basically, your address is there. I made up this address, by the way, so, and the phone number and the Social Securities. All right. They were both full-year residents of the state of Nevada. And since there's no income tax, we're going to skip all the state and local tax. This is why you want to live in Nevada, no income tax. So do any of these apply? They might. Maybe you're legally blind. Maybe you're legally disabled. You can check those boxes and it'll ask you some questions. All right, I left them all blank. Here, if you agree, H&R Block may use your tax return details. It's up to you. Generally, I would recommend just say no thanks. No dependents. Now let's work on the income. So here's where we get into the beginning of this. They give you a little advice if you're a freelancer. We don't need to upgrade to premium. They'll try to upsell you now and then. Just say no thanks. So in this case, John gets some wages from a job at the association here. They get some interest income. They get some dividend income. Mary runs an eBay storefront. And so this is about as far as I'll go. Here's John's W-2. And right now it's not filled in. So you would go edit and import. And then you start putting in the data. Some of this it knows from last year. But the earnings numbers and all that, I would have to put in. So let me, at this point, close this one. And let me go back to H&R Block and open up J&M Smith 2024. All right. And I'm just going to go, you can move around, and this is what we're going to do here. They've got the personal information, which we did. Income. If you click here, you get all the different possible types of income. And there's a lot, as you can see. Most of these wouldn't apply, but you can say go to and go to any one of these and work on that. So like here's wages. And if I say edit this, I hope I didn't mess up here. Yes. Thought I put this stuff in. I know I did. Well, let me just real quick put a couple of numbers in, just so we can see something. Should have practiced. All right, and I'm just going to take 10%. State tax would be 0, and Medicare's, well, that's Social Security tax. Let's say 100. And here I'll say 35. All right, this is just so we get the idea. They asked about anything special there. There's nothing. And so that's his wages. We're finished there. Yeah. Give me a second. I'm going to go into documents. I might have opened the wrong one. Let's see. Yeah, this one, see, it's at the end. This looks better. I'm sorry. All right, let's go. All right. This is the tax summary, by the way. Okay, I think we're looking a little better because I don't want to have to retype all that stuff. Yeah, John's wages are now there. Good. Okay. Let's take a look. Bank interest, 241 and 350. Let me skip by that. I want to show you the dividends and interest one. You'll get a 1099 from your broker. Interesting point. I used to get those right about February 15th. And this year, Schwab sent a note out, said, we're going to send it out on February 28th, which means you can't file till sometime after that because you're waiting. So anyway, they had some ordinary dividends. In the case here, I kept it simple. The dividends all are qualified, meaning they qualify for preferred treatment. There's a maximum tax rate of 20%. The first 90,000 or so is taxed at zero. If you're getting dividends that are really interest, like from a bond fund or dividends from foreign companies, those are not considered qualified. And so the ordinary dividends number may be higher than the qualified dividend number. It just depends on how you've invested. All right, but let's move on. Dividends and distributions were done. Business activities. They have business and real estate. Let's take a quick look here. So Mary runs this doll shop and she makes dolls at home and then she sells them. And it's, you know, not a big business by any stretch. Sells them on eBay. And you can step your way through all of this. I just want to get to the end. And income, she had about 5,200 in gross receipts. Hang on. No other business income. She had about, she sells these for 50 a piece. So she's got two that came back for one reason or another. And so that was, she had inventory and she values it. All right, so it looked like this. Starting inventory, 400. She spent about 1,200 on materials and supplies, 240 on other costs. Closing inventory was 200. So that will determine basically total gross income after cost of goods sold and returns were subtracted, 3,460. And then we get into her business expenses. Stay away, unless you're seriously using your home, a room there as an office all the time. It just gets to be too much hassle to do the bookkeeping. And if you start taking home office deductions, you have to depreciate that. And when you go to sell your house, now you've got very complicated things to do, prorating that business expense, maybe recapturing it. So Mary's business is very simple. She pays some commissions and fees to eBay for running the storefront for her. And she's got a few other business expenses, basically just related to running the business. not very much. So eBay gets about $285. She has shipping costs because she's that's what the business is. So that gets all added up. And final result, total business expenses $649. Let's see. So her net profit was $28.11 for the year. One of those businesses, marginal, whether it's really worth doing it, but it's something to do, something she enjoys, that kind of a thing. Here's the property. And so I'm like, yeah, we can. Again, this is just so you can get a sense. Let's work on the sale of stocks and bonds. And this again is going to come in on your 1099 from your broker. So total sales proceeds. Let's work on through this and see. So they sold a block of 200 of Johnson & Johnson. I just picked one out of the air. Had a gain of 93.11. You can look at that. Whenever you sell a stock, the data is what was it? When did you buy it? When did you sell it? What were the net proceeds? And what was your original cost? All right. There may have been occasionally some other expenses. It's been more than a year, so it's a long-term gain, which means, again, it's treated the same way as dividends, preference income. The basis was reported by Schwab to the IRS. And so the gain and loss was 93.14. They also unloaded 600 shares of an oil and gas company, Devon. Anyway, it's pretty much the same. Here, the shares were acquired over a span of time. So instead of a single date, you just say variable long. The IRS will accept that. You've got to have backup to prove that's true, but unless they audit you, it doesn't matter. Sold them all on the end of the year, December 30th. So this was tax loss harvesting. They got 19,242, had paid originally 40,560. So this generated a fairly substantial loss. And so the two of those together are going to add up to a net loss of about 21 minus 9, 12, roughly 12,000. Some of that can be deducted against ordinary income. All right. So that takes care of the cap gains. There were some retirement plan withdrawals and other things. Let's see. They said you can come up here and bounce around. Let's look at the Social Security income one. That'll be pretty good. All right, so again, you fill in this. Every year, if you're on Social Security, you'll get a 1099 something or other, SSA. And they have some boxes on there that you fill in. Box 5 numbers look like that. These were benefits received. Did you have any federal tax withheld? Because John does estimated taxes quarterly. He handles all that through the estimated taxes. You could have them withhold up to, I think, 20%. All right, and then their Medicare premiums basically qualify as medical expense deductions. So you put those in, but we're not going to probably see those get used. So they figure out that based on all the income they receive, 10,814 of their Social Security benefits are taxable. And so then the maximum that can be is 85% of your Social Security. All right, no property sales and other income. Let's see if there's one other, because I want to get over to the other side of it. Just real quick though, let's go look at, here it's under reports, tax summary. This is, you can check this anytime you want. So on the income side, they had 41.8. There were 199 in adjustments for Mary's business. You get a small deduction if you run your own business. So adjusted gross was 41.6. Deductions, they wound up taking the standard deduction. And it's pretty generous in 2024. Plus being over 65, they each get an extra 1,800, which is why you see that number being quite so large. All right, and then tax withheld or already paid. I was going to show you that. John made estimated tax payments. The actual tax due was only $603, so they're going to get a refund of $44. And generally, that's what you want to shoot for if you can, is owe very little or have a small refund. That way, you know, the IRS isn't hanging on to your income all year. I mean, it's great to get a refund, I guess, but as they like to say, you've given the IRS an interest-free loan. So let's take a look over here in adjustments. There really wasn't much of anything that applied here. And on the deductions, John and Mary, because they just don't have a mortgage, don't have very much real estate tax, there's no way that you can accumulate $30,200 in itemized deductions. Typically, as a senior living here in Sun City, it's rare, unless you have very big medical expenses, and sometimes that happens. So let me go over to taxes, and let's see where federal tax payments. So here again, you come in, there may be different things that you paid in during the year. The only one that applies in this case is estimated tax payments. Click that, and here you can enter the date and the amount that you paid, and that's through the EFTPS, Federal Tax Payment System. You can go online, you have an account there, you just log in, set up a payment, and it's directly transferred from your bank account. You get a receipt for that, and it's guaranteed proof of payment. So John just made 4 quarterly payments of 25. And these are, typically you want to go in a couple of days before the due date and schedule the payment, and then you don't get into a penalty situation. If you have a fairly large amount due and you haven't paid estimated taxes, you get dinged, of course, with penalties for underpayment. And the IRS sort of assumes the income is smoothly distributed over the 12 months of the year. Sometimes that's not the case, depending on what you're doing. But that's how that looks. All right, and then they basically, you see Mary's going to have self-employment tax for that eBay business. And they tell you about avoiding. So let's go over to miscellaneous, and then let's hit finish, because I wanted you to see accuracy review. Let's take a quick look at this. Check for additional documents. All right. Based on, I ran this when I did this presentation about a month ago. Click take me to. All right. Let's close that out. Let's see. There's the tax summary. Let's hit next. We don't need the state program, so we'll skip it. There goes the accuracy review. All right, and it's analyzing. They guarantee that they want to, at some point here, they'll try to upsell you to for insurance filing options. But basically, we're in good shape at this point. You would pick e-file, and then they, interestingly, let's see, they're going to direct deposit. That would all be true. Since it's a refund, it goes back in your bank account. And you would have to put that in, John and Mary. So I'm going to say, let's send them a check instead. Probably you don't want to do that, though. Much better to have it go in your bank account. All right, and let's see. I'm going to hit this again. It's not finding any problems, which is good. Okay. Sometimes you'll get a pop-up says you're missing a field here, or you need to correct this number, or like the first time their driver's licenses weren't in. They want you to enter that. All right, but let me stop there. We got about, I want to get back to my slides. We've kind of seen very quickly how that works. There's a free file program. If your adjusted gross income is $79,000 or below, you can go there and you'll get redirected to one of the software vendors' free products. If your AGI is over 79, you can actually go to irs.gov. They have online now fillable PDF tax forms. You can fill them in, print them, submit them. They're good for relatively simple returns. If you think you need help, the AARP has all over the country tax assistance programs going right now. Here in Sun City, we have it going. You had to reserve in advance. And the details, in our case, were in our community magazine, which won't do much for you, but check it out. And then for electronic payments, Electronic Federal Tax Payment System, you can go to that website. If you're not registered, you can sign up. They have to send you a PIN number separately by email, so it takes a few days before you're completely ready to roll. A lot of it you can do online. Once you're there, you can basically, as part of the registering, you're going to put in your bank accounts, routing numbers, and account number. And what you're really doing when you make a payment is authorizing a transfer from your checking account directly to the IRS. And each payment gets an email receipt. What I could do, here it is. You all may do things differently than I do, but I've got a big folder here called tax history. And then for every tax year, I've got details. And so here's the payment history. And this is the last one I just did. And so you get, when you're on that website, you can basically pull this out. And so the last 16 months, I guess it is. So there's, what I paid for each payment and when the dates. So this is very handy when you're doing that part of the return. Anyway, just so you sort of, and I can click this, but I don't think I'll try. Here's the website. And all you have to do is hit the make a payment button once you're registered. And then it's going to ask you to log in. And you need a user ID. Actually, the user ID is your Social Security number and a password, and then this PIN that they mailed you. And they've actually extended this. The new thing now is they're using two-factor authentication, and they're using a service called ID.me. So if you haven't registered with ID.me, you have to do that as well. Now, if I were to click this, give it a second to run here, you can see. All right, and then, so I would have to hit sign in because I have registered, and it's quite exacting. It's much more than the casual thing. But this is good because now somebody else can't go in and register in your name with the IRS and basically then file a fraudulent return claiming a refund. You know, there was recently a very major breach. One of these identity tracking services got hacked, and literally millions and millions of Social Security numbers got out onto the dark web. And you're helpless. You can't do anything. But the two-factor authentication here will protect you from somebody basically taking over your personal IRS account and being able to do things. Because the last thing you want is somebody filing a fake return in your name and claiming a refund. All right, well, anyway, I'm not going to log in, but you've sort of seen what that looks like. All right. These, when you get the handout, if you're interested, there's a lot of pretty interesting statistics, where your money goes, how the federal budget looks. There is a summary of tax law changes for 2024. There really were hardly any except adjusting the brackets for everything. Be mindful too, we still don't know. The Tax and Jobs Cut Acts of 2017 is due to sunset at the end of 2025. And if that sunsets, we're back to the old tax laws and brackets and everything that were in place before 2017. And in particular, the standard deductions are much smaller. Now, I don't want to get political. We'll just see what happens. Sometime this year, that's probably going to get renewed in some form. So things will stay pretty much the same. All right, and I gave you the 24 tax brackets, but they're built into these programs if you're using them. So it's just informational to kind of know where the cut points are. If you're, as an example, I'm doing the IRA to Roth conversions because I'm trying to drain out an IRA. And you want to pay attention to how much of that can I convert in 1 year and not push myself into the next higher tax bracket. But anyway, that's how those look. And I just was always intrigued at the 35% bracket. Up till then, everything in married filing jointly was double single filers. But suddenly at this level, that should have been like 1.2 million, right? Instead, it's only 731,000. So they begin to put a marriage penalty in place once you're at the 35% bracket. And these numbers, you know, a couple that are both working, it's not hard to get up into that range. Anyway, here's the 25 numbers, same thing. All right. And I think I'm just at the point. How'd I time it? Just about perfectly, huh? So we could go to questions mode. Judy?
That will turn it over to her.
Yes. If a taxpayer had higher income in the fourth quarter, say a Roth conversion, and paid a higher estimated tax for that quarter, how can we make the software fill out the form that negates underpayment penalty?
I believe it does that. There's an option to sort of calculate that quarter by quarter rather than calculating the whole year and dividing by 4. It was in the estimated tax area. There's a place where it says, are you subject to underpayment penalties? And I know I've run into that. I typically don't bother because if you've made the larger payment for the fourth quarter, I do the same thing. Because you have to, when you're doing Roth conversions, you can only do that after you've paid all your RMDs. And so you need to decide when to take the RMD, and then after that pay or do the Roth conversion.
What's an RMD?
Required minimum distribution.
Thank you.
Now you're of an age where you should know about that.
Oh, yes.
But you may not have an IRA.
No. Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
This is a comment. I prepare my tax returns using 2 programs, H&R Block Deluxe and TurboTax Premier. Then if the bottom line for both programs are in agreement, I feel confident I haven't made any errors. For tax year 2024, his bottom line differs by $1 and his state bottom lines are in total agreement. I think I remember that same comment from your presentation last year.
Well, ideally they should be. One thing I noticed is H&R Block takes all the data that you put in and rounds to the nearest dollar. And I believe TurboTax keeps the cents and they round at the end. So you could easily have $1 or 2 difference. But yeah, it's encouraging if they come in that close.
Okay, this might be your 2FA. I've done my own taxes online for about 30 years. Last year, it required a complicated identification that caused me to be unable to use online filing. Please explain this new process and how to deal with it, including trying to file directly with the IRS. And is that what you just talked about?
That was ID.me. I ran into trouble with it too, and I finally spent like 2 hours on the phone with one of their service reps. The problem is they want a picture of your driver's license. And typically the way they have you do that is get your cell phone out and take a picture. And that can be a little bit tricky, getting it properly positioned. And I know I ran into trouble doing it online the first time and got frustrated. And then I finally had to call and the service rep walked me through it. There are other things that they want. It's a lot of identification. But I guess that's why the IRS is using them. Because typically a hacker wouldn't have your driver's license. Because anybody could, say, if they know your Social Security number, which is out on the dark web, they're a long way to being able to impersonate you. But they typically won't have your driver's license, which has your picture on it. So all I'd say to the person asking the question is, call ID.me. One of their service reps should be able to get you through it. But I ran into the same thing. I was ready to file my quarterly estimated tax and ran into this. Took me a day or two to get it all sorted out and fixed. Luckily, I had decided to do it early enough. I had time. But anything to do with the IRS.gov, SSA.gov, or EFTPS, you need to use one of those services. And ID.me seemed to be the one best for consumers.
Mm-hmm. And since the beginning of time that I have been doing what happens to all my data after I'm not here anymore, I tell everybody you need, hands down, Social Security account, and you need an IRS account. And my comment is, I don't care if you ever use them. You want to be the one that's responsible for them, not somebody else who has gotten your Social Security number off the dark web or whatever. Yeah. You should tell your friends. You should tell your relatives, because it's so important. And gave one presentation when we were doing them in person. This guy in the front row raised his hand. He says, I've been working on it for a year. He said, I can't remember which account it was, but he says, I've taken all my documentation in and said, this is really me. And he said, after a year's time, I still don't have it resolved. We don't want to have to do that. So all of you people that are listening to this, and there's a bunch of you, you need to get Social Security and an IRS account. And take your time, smell the roses, and go, oh, they did talk about having all this identification stuff, but it's important. Comment, this person uses TurboTax, and he has taken the audit protection. And he said 1 year he was audited, and it paid for a lengthy audit process to resolve the problem. So you have to decide, safe or sorry. You know, decide which way you want to do it. You might not ever in this or any other lifetime get audited, but
once in a while you get lucky or unlucky. They do randomly pick some returns for audits. The audit risk calculation, though, that I think both programs do that. If your audit risk is low, then you may decide, nah, it's just not going to be worth the extra expense. And I think the IRS, when you file with these programs, they know the math is all going to be correct. And so a lot of the issues that would tend to lead to not necessarily an audit, but maybe a correction letter, something like that, typically get taken care of in these programs. So,
and that's one of the last decisions you can make, whether to take that service or not.
Right.
Okay.
If you're doing something that's not illegal, but maybe pushing the edges a little bit, you know, when you're running a business or you own a rental property, you know, some of those things, who's to decide what's a deductible expense? I mean, you have to keep pretty good books, but anyway, I'll just leave it at that. You can decide yourself. It might be cheap insurance.
Yeah, that's the same thing with your business expenses. Does that stapler really count? Do we have any other questions or comments? I just love your presentations. I understand everything, and I'm not a numbers person in any way, shape, or form. And everything is so clear.
Good.
John Pierce, your turn.
Okay, finally got unmuted. I'm wondering if the presenter, Tom, has looked at the IRS Direct File.
I'm not, let's see. Are you talking about the free file? Or is
no, free file is the one that passes you
That's
on
pretty
to a
low
commercial
end.
preparer?
Well, free file will just route you back to TurboTax or H&R Block's free online filing. The direct file, I've heard the term, you can get these fillable forms online now through the IRS. I think I mentioned that. And I think that's relatively complete.
Well,
But I haven't
direct
tried
file
it.
is direct file is actually competition to the commercial filers.
I
It's
see.
only good for federal. It doesn't do state. And when I was looking at free file this year, it looks like TurboTax and H&R Block are not part of the program this year.
Hmm.
I don't know what happened. Um,
Well, that's interesting to know. I obviously I don't do that, so I just was taking it on faith that that was still something they were participating in. But so if not, there's another software called TaxCut, which I haven't really spent any time with. I wonder if that's the one then.
there's actually two. There's Tax Cut and Tax Slayer. I've used Tax Cut in the past, but one other point I wanted to make is I got tired of the brain drain trying to do ID.me, and I found there is another way you can make your tax payments without having to set up an account with the IRS. And that's using something called direct pay. It's not as convenient as the EFTPS because you have to put in your bank account information every time you want to use it.
Right.
But you can set up, your 4 quarterly payments in advance once you're done.
All right. Well, that's good to know too. Maybe the other part of that though is, do you get the receipt back from the IRS?
Yes, you get an email.
Payment.
You get an email back from them.
Okay. Then that would be good too.
My social security number and my wife's is out on the dark web, just like pretty much everybody else's. I'm going to have to do the ID.me route in order to get a tax IP. But that's just something got to do.
Right.
I just Googled the two programs affiliated with the IRS program, and the answer is no. But then the rest of the paragraph was they both offer free file programs or apps.
Right.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom. Learned quite a bit. Spurred people on maybe to go ahead and think, maybe I really ought to start doing this. I bet some people, one of them I know, has already even gotten his money back already, which is good. Tom, you're going to be our last question. Tom Odell.
Okay.
Unmute yourself, please.
How do you handle a miscalculation of a RMD?
Miscalculation by who? Your broker?
But a broker did not gave enough to the government.
Ooh.
I told them what to give them, and they didn't do the whole.
I see. Remember, an RMD is simply a withdrawal from the IRA, and you can withdraw any amount yourself. You can, so it'd be easy to go back. You can calculate the amount yourself. Usually the brokerage statement carries that. But if not, as long as you know the balance of the account as of December 31st of the previous year, there's a table that has the divisor, I guess you could call it, the factor that you use based on your age. So like my age, 79, I think I looked up in the table, my divisor is 20 right now.
What happened was I lumped all my distributions into one, and I told the broker to take this much out, and they did not take enough out. They're supposed to take out 20,000 and they only took out 15.
I see.
So how do I handle that?
You're still, you can make that withdrawal until April 15th. So you have time to go draw another 5,000 out. If the correct number is 20.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, then.
And then I report it as a total amount then?
Right. Now, what if you take it out after January 1st, you should specify, hopefully somewhere they'll let you say, this withdrawal is for tax year 2024. And then they may send you a corrected 1099. That reflects the total amount you took out.
Who's going to send me the 1099 will be from my broker?
Yeah, should be.
Okay. So I'll just put it in my
That's where
IRS.
the IRA is, yeah.
Okay. And they will report it then?
Yeah.
To the government?
Yep.
Okay.
So, and to you as well. Like I said, if you take it out now and specify it was for 2024, they should issue a corrected 1099 reflecting that extra $5,000.
And the 1099 would be coming from my broker.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
John Kennedy, over to you.
Yep.
Tom, thank you very much for another very excellent workshop. Hopefully people can wade their way through the jungle of the tax to get it done.
It is a jungle.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. It was fun.
Thank you much.